Thank you. Welcome to the Village Board Work Session for Thursday, October 3rd. It's 6:03 p.m. We're in the Village Hall Boardroom. Village Manager White, could you please take roll call?
Sure. All right. Trustee Wyka, I think she'll be here shortly.
Yep.
Trustee Bonoski,
Evening.
Trustee Mishler,
Here.
Trustee Briggs,
Here.
and Student Advisor Pasantes.
Here.
You forgot somebody.
What did I forget? Oh, I'm sorry. Trustee Mishler. Did I forget? I apologize.
You forgot me.
Oh, Mayor. My
I'm here.
apologies, My apologies. Sorry.
Thanks. We have some guests this evening. We have David Hastings from CPL, Dick Wade. Did I get it correctly? Wait, I'm sorry. Are you also with CPL? Yes, ma'am. Okay, with CPL. We also have some of the members of the Sustainability Committee who are here to present this evening. Dr. Matt Brown and Natasha Besh Turner. Is there a doctor in front of your name too, Natasha? Okay. Heidi, as I said, will be here shortly, but we can go ahead and get started and she'll join in when she gets here. So item number one, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. Liana's gonna do our land acknowledgement this evening.
Before we begin this evening, we would like to recognize the Seneca Nation on whose ancestral territory we are gathering. The present-day village of Fairport sits on traditional Seneca land. The Seneca Nation, with the Mohawk, Cayuga, Onondaga, Oneida, and Tuscarora, make up the sovereign Haudenosaunee Confederacy. With respect, we acknowledge the people of the Seneca Nation on whose land we now live. We honor their past, present, and future contributions to and stewardship of this land.
Thank you. You did a great job. For her first contribution to this meeting over the mic, you did fantastic. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to new business. So item number one is the draft sustainability plan presentation by representatives from the Sustainability Committee. So I believe that's Natasha and Matt. If you want to come on up to the podium, your slides are loaded already, and take it away.
All right, wish me luck.
I think everybody has a packet.
Oh, it's already on. All right,
Take
Thank
a
you.
deep breath. We're all friends here.
I'm still in front of the microphone right now. Anyway, moving on. Thank you for allowing us to talk about the sustainability plan at tonight's meeting. Sorry, that's just right up in there. Okay. I'm just going to move to the first slide. There we go. So we're going to go through the plan tonight. We're not going to go detail by detail. We're not going to read it. You have it in front of you. So this serves as more of just like a refresher of the points that we made in here. And we'll just take a couple of slides right off the bat to just get us all on the same page. So when we talk about sustainability tonight, we're talking about making choices with consideration for both the present and the future. We feel very fortunate that we are in a community that has recognized the importance of sustainability for over 14 years. The first Sustainability Committee was convened in 2010. They came up with a plan in 2011 that was adopted by the village board at that time. And that plan in large degree focused on efforts that the village government itself could take, and also those village efforts on village properties. We have a lot of accomplishments in all of those areas. One of the things that we did not necessarily follow through with as robustly is that annual evaluation that report called for. And so in October of 2020, a new committee was convened of 10 volunteers from the community. We came to this work from a variety of backgrounds. Some of us have a professional experience in the field, some of it personal, public sector, private sector. Some of it's just a hobby or a passion, but I can tell you every one of us who met over several years and did this work came with a deep sense of pride in our community and a deep sense of responsibility to preserve, grow, and protect Fairport for future generations. And so the sustainability plan that you have in front of you is the result of the efforts of, and if I could just say the names of the people who substantially contributed, it's myself, Natasha Besh-Turner, Dr. Matthew Brown, Timothy Castline, Patrick Domeratz, Brett Goronsky, Jessica Cruz, Brendan Mance, Emily Mance, Pamela Renfro, and Valerie Sawayko. And we also spoke with many other community members and met with village staff. Okay. Quick overview, the sustainability plan itself is divided into 7 sections. Those are energy, building and development, recycling and composting, transportation, land management, communication, and water conservation. Before we dive into it, there's 2 overarching themes that we want you to just be aware of. The first is we make lots of recommendations in this plan to continue improving village-owned properties and village operations, but we also tried to bring a lot of emphasis into supporting individuals, businesses, residents, and visitors in making more sustainable choices that might be hard right now. So in bringing that work to our community. And the second kind of overarching theme is, yes, greenhouse gas emissions do affect climate change. And so we'll talk about emissions and how Fairport can reduce those emissions. But we also started to bring into this plan an element of recognition that climate change is already happening. The climate is already warming. And so we need to think about adaptation and building resilience in our community. All right, let's get into it. The first section is energy. We are so lucky to be served by Fairport Municipal Commission, which gets most of its energy. That's renewable hydropower from Niagara. That said, because the goals are electrification, we're going to be using a lot more energy, and we need to be really good stewards of how we use that energy and energy conservation and management programs. Since the last sustainability plan in 2010, we've had updates to a lot of our properties, energy efficiency audits of all village buildings with recommendations that were implemented. We have a great EV charging system in the village of Fairport. So the next steps that we recommend are kind of in 3 big buckets. The first is to continue improving village-owned buildings. Thinking of other ideas like, for instance, daylight harvesting, which would be to manage the lighting in the room to not have it as bright when we have a lot of daylight coming into the room. The next would be a lot of recommendations on how to support residents and other property owners to take advantage of the rebates that are available to them that they may just not know about. Yes, we have a link on our website, but to actively engage in an education program to really reach out to people and support them in the decisions that they'd like to make to be more energy efficient. And then finally, to work with our partners. FMC service area is a lot of Parenton as well, which is outside of the village. There are many opportunities if we work with Parenton or even with the school committee to work towards common goals of sustainable energy practices. Next is building and development. This is the 3rd highest source of greenhouse gas emissions in the greater Rochester area, Finger Lakes area. So any of energy efficiencies in building and development will have an impact on our contribution to climate change. Again, some of the improvements that we've had in our village buildings have really made a difference. Increased thermal performance on village-owned rehab projects, Energy Star appliances for village-owned properties. These are wonderful things that we are reaping the benefits of right now. So our goals are, once again, to educate homeowners on programs that might be outside of FMC's purview. Village-wide upgrades, there are opportunities like the 2022 Department of Energy grant-supported pilot programs to look into the feasibility of community geothermal, where we can take advantage of construction on our roads to provide a service that would serve our property owners. Now is a great time to be looking at how we can amend our code to reach stretch goals. There are many communities across the country, even in New York State, such as Buffalo's Green Code or in Ithaca, where they look to support homeowners, property owners in exceeding energy efficiency standards in the regular building code. And now is a great time for the village to consider doing that. Such as for new housing, if we look into asking significant rehabs or new builds to adhere to or strive for net zero or passive house standards. That would be a great thing for the village to look into. Recycling and composting. Once again, we feel so lucky to be in a community that has placed such value on making public recycling accessible to all by continuing to have it as a service for all properties in the village. And to make efforts to make sure that when you're out in public, like in Kennelly Park, there's a receptacle for you to put your recyclables into. As well to institute the collectively composting program. What a wonderful thing. Organic matter in landfills turns into methane, which is a greenhouse gas that's way more potent than carbon dioxide. And we are fortunate to be in a community where our leaders have recognized the importance of bringing composting to the community in a way that maybe if you can't manage a backyard pile, you can still do your part. And so our recommendations are to continue and expand this composting program, to look into ways to bring that compost to a facility that's maybe not so far away so we can reduce emissions from transportation. Potentially look into amending the code, again, because we're looking at this right now, for asking construction waste to be recycled to the greatest extent feasible. For residents, to support residents in their recycling by both providing them with large covered toters so that on a windy day your bottles aren't rolling down the street. And also recycling tends to be really confusing. What are we recycling now? Is it black plastic? Is it clear plastic? To engage in a robust education campaign that's continuing on what can really be recycled and what can be composted. We've had a lot of new people move in the last few years just to continue letting residents know that they can make choices. And for our businesses, to support zero waste events, zero waste festivals, and even making it more possible for our businesses to start composting if they would like to. Transportation. This is the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in the greater Rochester area, Finger Lakes area. Anything we can do here will directly have a big impact on our emissions. As well, if we can make good choices now, we can increase the choices that the generations that come after us will have as regards to transportation. Again, we are so privileged to be in a community. I mean, this is probably the highest density level 2 chargers that I know of. That makes choosing an electric car easier for both residents, but especially for visitors. And to have signs for priority parking for low and zero emissions vehicles. It's a simple signal that communicates to people who come to Fairport, this is something we care about. So next steps fall into 2 basic categories. Our recommendations are for the village to look at infrastructure that makes, again, these transportation choices easier. A robust, complete network of sidewalks and crosswalks. Signage, so if you get here by bike, you know where you can go by bike. Walk signal timing. Right now, the default is that you got to push a button as a pedestrian. We're kind of going on the assumption that there won't be a pedestrian there. So simple infrastructure changes like this that can make alternate transportation choices from a fossil fuel powered car easier. We could even get rid of the overnight parking restrictions during the winter. It doesn't snow as much as it used to, and that can alleviate some of the stress and the pressure that our businesses have felt as the village has become more popular. This particular section is ripe for coordination with lots of our community partners. Obviously, the DOT, that goes without saying, but this is an opportunity to reach out to the school district. We have schools in our tiny little village, let's make sure that the students, we know where they're coming from so that if they choose to get to school by bike or on foot, they can be safe and that we have the infrastructure here to support them. What are they looking for? How can we work together? The Merchants Association, our businesses depend on deliveries, they depend on visitors coming in. What are ways that we can support them so that our transportation choices can be, can lower emissions overall?
All right, thank you, Natasha. All right, so did I miss one? Are we good? No, that was transportation. All right, so land management. You know, we're not the largest village in the world. We're not the largest municipality, but you know what we have, I think we all really, really appreciate. So things that we've done since the 2011 plan was implemented: preserve 3 really sizable green spaces in the Manor Hill neighborhood. I know at least one of the members of the board lives really close to one of those green spaces. I hope everybody's had a chance to get out and use them at least for something. Convene in support of the Village Tree Board. Now that obviously predates the 2011 plan, but I think it really speaks to our community and to our elected officials to continue to support our urban forest, basically, you know, all of the trees that exist on village property. I often tell the story of when my wife and I were looking for someplace to live in the Rochester area, and we knew nothing about Fairport. And we drove in kind of over the Erie Canal and saw these just lovely, just picturesque drive down West Church Street with the canopy of trees. Just you know, that picture you don't get everywhere. It's good looking, and it's great for the environment as well. And you know, I spend a lot of time thinking about the trees in this place, along with Jason and Natasha. You know, every tree we remove, we replace at least with one, and we're always looking for ways to put new trees in. So, additionally, and I think very, very you know, timely, is improvements to the northwest and the southwest banks of the Erie Canal. It just, you know, it continues to look better and better, and really to draw people into our center of our village. So thank you guys for supporting those achievements of land management. Potential next steps. I love the farmer's market. I see you guys at the farmer's market. I assume you're there because you love it too. But one of the biggest limitations of the farmer's market is that it is only there for certain months out of the year. If we were able to have a more permanent structure, we would really enhance the people in the village and the surrounding areas' abilities to get local produce without having to necessarily drive anywhere to get it. They could walk right into the village. Develop further green space and community gardening opportunities. It is amazing how many little plots there are in the village that nobody really knows about. You know, stuff up Orchard Street. You know, there's kind of right up at the end there, the village owns. I know there's some little other parcels. I apologize. I know they were there when I was still kind of, you know, knowledgeable. Okay, all right. So I'm not out of date here. But perhaps one of the biggest by landmass areas that the village has control over is the tree lawns. You know, people don't realize that the tree lawn is something that, you know, you as a board can actually influence. Encouraging people to not have that be just grass, have it be, you know, kind of, you know, native plantings, have it be wildflowers. I've seen a couple of people already kind of take this on. Maybe a couple of people are in this room right now, and make it. I mean, I would consider it more beautiful, and I would certainly consider it more environmental than your average lawn. So that'd be something that we could allow and we could encourage. All right, communication. So, you know, the best decisions that we make here are sometimes not worth anything if people don't know the decisions have been made. So some things that have already been done since the 2011 plan, incorporated online payments for village services, which is great. People can, you know, kind of pay without getting, you know, vehicles involved. And adding a page on the village website regarding sustainability, linking to the sustainability plan, so people can actually see what has been done. I feel like I should put a plug in here for Luke, you know, because I got to tell you, I did not know we had a sustainability plan, despite being something who felt like he knew a lot about sustainability. You know, the fact that, you know, I assume if I didn't know about it, a lot of other people didn't know we had one either. So getting better at communication is something that I think we need to do. Next steps would be creating or adopting a community-wide program to reduce food waste. I love the community composting program. I think you guys knew that before I even stepped up to the mic. by the time we have waste to throw out, we've already failed a little bit. If we can teach people how to reduce their production of organic waste, then that's even better than dealing with the waste once it's made. Partnering with local schools, as Natasha alluded to, we have a couple of schools right within the village borders here, which makes it super easy to at least get a conversation going about our environmental actions, and also to get students involved. And I applaud the student involvement that is here. I think we really should have it really at all levels. Utilizing the village website to further communicate our sustainability objectives. I'll tell you, when the community composting, when it got started, I was contacted by people from other municipalities, people from Pittsford, people from as far away as DeWitt, New York, which is outside Syracuse, saying, "Hey, we heard you're doing this. What can we sit down in a meeting? Can we find out how you're doing it?" So letting people know all of our successes and our plans and how we're doing it, because ultimately we are just a very small part of the problem and solution. And the more we can share best practices with our neighbors, both near and far, the better we're all going to be. Water conservation. So things that have been done since the 2011 plan, utilized and promoted low-impact stormwater management practices, and also replaced some fixtures in village-owned properties with low-flow versions. And things we can do in the future going forward, recommendations would be conducting water use audits of homes and businesses in the village. And of course, we wouldn't necessarily be finding a way for it to be available and affordable for people who wanted to do that. Offering incentive programs such as rebates or tax credits to encourage replacement of plumbing fixtures and appliances with more water-efficient models. And to provide retrofit kits for residences and businesses for free, if we could, or at cost. Just make it easier for people to get the things that would be helpful. So that is a quick run through of all of our sections. You guys obviously have the plan that you can go through. We kind of picked for each section a few different things we thought would kind of whet your appetite to read more in the plan. But the conclusion, the future actions, I think is really kind of where this is going. So I've sat where you sit. I know the decisions that you're being asked to make have a lot of competing interests. There's the cost, there's the effectiveness, there's how much people in the village want it. That is your charge, that is your responsibility. And what we as a sustainability committee would ask is that no matter what happens going forward, that you keep sustainability as a consideration in all of your decisions. That I know you guys do seeker reviews, that's a good thing. We're kind of forced to do it, but still it's good to do. But even beyond that, even the small things. Periodic review and update of the goals set by the sustainability plan. The 2011 plan was a great plan. And fortunately, through fate, through Brian, your hard work, most of the goals in there got done. But I did a pretty deep dive through all of the mentions of the sustainability plan, kind of prior to when we convened this sustainability committee. There was one review that was done about a year later. And then it just kind of sat on a shelf for about a decade. And the best plan that we could come up with, if it's sitting on a shelf, we've really just kind of wasted a lot of people's time. But more importantly, we wasted the village's time when we could have been more proactive about doing things. But our largest ask is the creation of a permanent sustainability board. Now I have some very bad news for you, and it is about the report that you will read, and that is, it is already out of date. I have two quotes that I use regularly from our village manager. One is, you can have whatever you want, but you're gonna pay for it. All right, I assume he's still saying that, usually around budget time. And the other thing that he says around budget time is, as soon as I print this budget, it's obsolete, So everything moves very quickly. The needs of the village move very quickly. Technology moves very quickly. And quite frankly, it's unfair for us as a community to ask the 5 people sitting before us who have so many responsibilities and so many things that you have to do to also keep up on this. So we propose the creation of a permanent sustainability board, and their charge would be to keep you up to date on what could be done and what should be done. Not necessarily a board like the planning board, not a board like the historic preservation board, but a board to look forward and to make recommendations. To, around budget time, say, hey, this is the low-hanging fruit that we could do a year from now. We could be done with this. This is the stuff that we think we could get done 5 years from now if we were to make these moves now. And even further ahead, 10 years from now, what should we be doing? Is the way we build, is the way we drive, is the way that we work our municipal the things that we have control over. Does that make sense? And how do we make it make sense? Natasha said, I think, a couple of really, really important things in her introduction. One is realizing that while you have control over village-owned properties, you also have so much influence. So much of what we do affects our surrounding communities, both through Fairport Municipal Commission and just because people want to know what Fairport is doing because you do it so well. 2, it's important to mitigate our contributions to climate change, but it's also going to be good to realize that no matter what we do, the ship has sailed, the train has left the station. We are looking at hotter and hotter years. We are looking at changes in climate. We're looking at people moving because of changes in climate. And that, no matter what we do, is going to change what Fairport looks like 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Looking ahead and being able to adapt to that is going to be the difference between a village that thrives and a village that merely survives. I know you guys have a lot on your plate. I know you also have a lot of boards to contend with. I know besides the tree board, which I talked too much about, and the the zoning board of appeals, we have the planning board, we have the historic preservation commission, we have the FMC. You guys kind of oversee all of that, and I hate to give you more work to do, and I don't think we'd be asking for it if we didn't think it was important and it wouldn't have a positive impact on everyone's lives. And I will say, if you decide to go ahead with this board, I think you need to fill it with people who are serious about this, and you need to take them seriously. There are too many sustainability boards in other municipalities that are there just to look like the elected officials are doing something. They're there to convene and deconvene and not actually get anything done. We don't need a party planning committee. We need people who are going to do things, and we need you to listen to what they have to say. I know you will, but I also have to say it on the record, so please don't take that in any way but the most earnest. That concludes all I have to say. I mean, that last part is the largest part. So thank you for allowing me to kind of take the helm of the Sustainability Committee. Thank you to all the people who worked on it with me and all the community members who contributed and listened to our opinions and offered their opinions, and to village staff who've been just immensely supportive, no matter how dumb my personal questions were. They never made me feel that way.
No question is a dumb question.
Well, you say that, but you didn't hear them. So, all right.
I'm not going to let you all walk away just yet. I personally want to thank you for the commitment to stay the course. I know this has been a long process and not always exciting and breathtaking, but I appreciate all the work that you put forth, and I know the village board does. I'm going to go down the line in case folks on the board have questions for you. Don't make them too difficult. If you have any questions or comments, we don't have 2 more hours to discuss a particular detailed plan. I'm going to start with you, Heidi. I know you came in a couple minutes late, but do you have any questions or comments?
At this point, I don't have any questions, but I am looking forward to moving forward with a sustainability board. I think it's really important to always look forward, and when you have the opportunity to make improvements, to do them the best way that you can with the environment and with sustainability in mind. So thank you for all of your hard work on this. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm going to skip you for a second. Liana, I'm giving you an opportunity if there was anything that came to mind. And if you say pass, nobody's going to think badly of that. I know I just put you on, what's that called when you put them on blast?
On the spot.
On spot, I put you on spot. Do you have anything that you wanted to ask about this? It's okay, that's okay, you're just starting, I mean, you haven't really learned much. I just wanted to give you an opportunity, okay? All right, now Adam. I know you'll have questions.
No, first off, again, thank you for all of your time. Thank you for presenting this concisely. I had a chance to read through. Don't worry, I'm not going to quiz you on all this stuff there. No, I think I agree with Heidi. I think this is something that's important for us to include as part of our community. So, I think continuing to discuss and figure out, what the best means and methods moving forward, how it integrates, how a sustainability board would integrate and provide recommendations and the relationships there, right, between not only the sustainability board and village board, but also with some of the other boards that we have as well. You mentioned there's clearly a connection between planning and zoning board of appeals. One actually kind of larger question that that actually came out of one of the last thing you mentioned, Matt. When you were when the group was looking at other examples of places that have been successful and places that have been unsuccessful, what did you find any certain markers that said, aha, this is when it's performative, and this is when there's actual intent to follow it through? I mean, the answer might be simple, but I'm curious.
So I feel like the answer is both simple and perhaps should not be stated in a public forum. I hate to take down any of my colleagues who are fighting the good fight,
Fair enough.
Against perhaps municipalities that aren't,
Okay.
aren't as on board as they would like us to think they are.
Okay.
I will say I had a great experience sitting in on the Brighton Sustainability Board
Okay.
for a couple of meetings. That's I think would be I think we can do better.
Sure.
And I don't think they would mind me saying that, we all want to be better. But
So-
I would say that's a board that is doing it the best that I've seen,
Okay.
but not as good as we could be.
Okay. So, sorry, I didn't mean to suggest like who's doing it good
Yeah,
and who's
I
not.
know.
It's more, are there certain things that you've noticed that communities do, like high level? Oh, for example, they only meet, but no recommendations come out of it, or there's no follow through, or is
So
I don't know if
basically,
that helps.
I don't know if I've taken a good enough survey to say that. I
Yeah,
can
fair
tell you
enough.
what I would think, but that's not necessarily what you're looking for.
okay? No, fair enough. It's okay if the answer is, let me give it some thought, because as we're moving forward, I think just making sure that we go down a successful path and not one of either stagnation or like I said, being just performative. That's all I've got.
Okay.
Thanks.
Em, do you have anything?
First, I just want to make a couple connections to some of the things that I heard. Communication is one of your overarching topics. I was carpooling today to work, and I was talking with my carpool friend about composting. And she said, well, why is it important organic matter is organic matter. Why does it matter that it decomposes in a landfill or decomposes just in a compost bin? So, and this woman is a smart woman, and she genuinely, did not know the answer. And so I explained to her, because I had just read your report, the difference between organic matter composting in a compost bin and in a landfill, and how the emissions are completely different when it is allowed to have oxygen as part of the process. So I think communication is part of the problem. If people know better, then they really do better. I had a lot of connections, but I think the other thing is, for me, the point of perhaps adopting a sustainability board would be to do exactly what you were stating, the low hanging fruit, right? There's a lot recommended in this. Some seem really very simple to implement and could make, sometimes simple can do really great things that don't, in terms of budgeting, it wouldn't cost a ton. So for me, I think that having a sustainability board, the real, key to that would be to help sort of sift through the really important, biggest bang for a buck kind of things. So I'm really interested in hearing and discussing at a further work session how we could move forward and how that might look. So I'm really, really grateful for all of the time that to all of the people that participated in this. I know that we are busy but I really appreciate your efforts here. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I do just want to point out, I invited one of our high school students, Neela Finucane. She can just give a wave. She is the president of the environmental committee at the high school. And so I read your report and saw that it had getting our high school students involved in these actions as well. So here she is, and I'm sure she's going to have a lot to say as well eventually. So on this, so okay, yeah, yeah.
Tracy?
Much the same. You know, I know you've been working on this for many years. It's in-depth, it's thorough. There is a lot of great information, a lot to unpack. Very much appreciate everything you did to put in here. Your passion just comes through. And yeah, I mean, we have to unpack it, talk about it, but thank you.
Thank you both for coming tonight. Thank you for all the work, and I want to thank all the members, whether they're in the room or at home or don't even know that you're talking about this, because I know this was a long process. And I know we have some members of Color Fairport Green here this evening. Thank you all for all you do to encourage recycling and green lifestyles in our community as well. All of these actions lead to a better future. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks so much. That will lead us to our next item on this agenda, which is the Main Streetscape design. And we have Dick and David here from CPL, and I'll turn over the microphone. And if there's anybody who is here who wanted to take off before we start this presentation, I'll give you the 60-second, 2-minute warning. Thank you for coming tonight. So I think trustees and board members, we have some packages in front of us that the folks from CPL brought, and I'll let them direct where we're going to go. And go ahead and get started whenever you're ready.
Sure, thanks for having us here. So the project's been moving along nicely. We have been working on detailed design over the last couple of months, really working on getting this dialed in. As part of that, it's looking at the finer points of the projects. You know, on an administrative level, it's coordinating with the agencies and utilities and getting approvals and permits and right-of-way acquisitions. We're really getting into detailed design now, looking at individual properties, sidewalk installations, crosswalks, curb ramps, and a lot of the fits and finishes that are really going to make this project what it is. And today we're here to talk about some of the fits and finishes that'll just really make it look like what's unique to Fairport, what's unique to this project. A lot of streetscape projects are your basics: curb, concrete sidewalk, street signs. You know, we're looking for opportunities to make this project more unique. So without ado, I'm going to bring Dick Waite into the conversation, give him the microphone. He's our landscape architect. He's working on a lot of the creative portions of the project. And no point in me keep talking, I'll give it to him.
And Dick, if you are working from a particular document, if you'd let us know where to look so that we can follow along.
Sure, I was going to
Okay,
go
you're
through
going to start with
this.
that one.
Yeah.
All right, great.
So, yeah, starting out with trees. Trees are obviously a really critical piece of this project. We met with the tree board on one occasion.
I think they all
And-
left.
Okay. And
Except for Adam.
we've been out twice now to assess the existing trees, and you'll see in a moment the tree layout we're proposing. And the first page in this handout is the recommended tree palette, which I feel pretty good about. And I just want to say a few things here. Certainly, we can't go through every tree, but this would be what I'm proposing that we would draw from for the trees on Main Street. And they're grouped into small and medium to large, which corresponds to some symbols you'll see in a moment on the plans. And I just want to make a few notes about some of these things. Nativity, you'll see some of these are exotic. That is not synonymous with invasive. It's a different thing. Exotic simply means the plant doesn't occur here naturally. Okay, and then plants can also be native to at the smallest scale, plants are native to an eco-region, and then they could be native to a state, native to a country, native to a continent. So you'll see here, most of the trees in this list, maybe half of them are native, which is good. We always try to use native plants exclusively. The problem is the nursery trade really hasn't caught up to us yet. And a lot of the plants that are readily available are not native. And the other thing to note here, sorry, I forgot where I was going there. So we have small trees, medium to large trees, that corresponds to the tree plants coming up. Nothing on here is invasive. I think what we would try to do is maximize the canopy area with the space available. So if we have a tiny space that fits a tree, we'll draw from the small trees list. If we have a larger space, we can pick from the larger trees. These were carefully selected from a variety of sources. Cornell has a publication out on recommended urban trees. A lot of these trees come from that list. There's also a Cornell publication on trees that are appropriate for structural soil, and a lot of the trees come from that list. And finally, some of these trees come from the Village of Fairport standard tree list. So hopefully this list will work with everybody. I'm on to the next page here, concrete sidewalk and hardscape layouts. We've talked. Sure, let's go to that document.
Yeah, it can, the second packet with the, that's just a one press. You're the pro, thanks for the advice. The second packet with the paper clip on it is kind of supplemental material, so by all means, we can kind of jump back and forth. So the first 6 pages of this that are the larger 11 by 17 are the layouts that Dick's been working on. He kind of laid out the trees, so I'm going to pass it back over to him.
Great, yeah, good idea to go to this while we're on the subject of trees. So there are 3 different symbols we used here for trees. So the sort of the beige dash line are existing trees to be preserved, and we are now recommending 16 of these trees, existing trees in the corridor, be preserved. And there's a total of 59 existing trees in the corridor presently. That sort of light purple hatch is a small tree. It indicates a new proposed small tree. These are all deciduous, by the way. And the larger symbol with the green is a larger canopy tree. And then additionally, a circle denotes a proposed mulched tree pit, and a rectangle denotes a 4x8 tree grate. So you can see on the left bottom there's a little count of the trees. 59 existing trees, 16 of those to be preserved, 43 to be removed, 78 proposed trees, so that gives us a total of 94 trees, which is a net gain of 35 trees. So that's significantly more tree canopy eventually.
Okay, quick question.
Yeah.
The circles would be the different types of grates? Is that what we're looking at too, or will we do that later? Because you got squares
Yeah,
and circles.
circles denote a mulched tree pit in a tree lawn. It would be a 6-foot diameter shredded hardwood bark mulch tree pit in the tree lawns. And then when we move into the center of the downtown area where we don't have tree lawns, we're proposing trees and tree grates.
Okay.
4x8 tree grates. So these plans basically go from south to north, and, you know, we gave a lot of thought to where these trees go. You know, there are constraints like with buildings and utilities and street lights and all sorts of things. So again, we'll try to maximize the size of tree that fits in the area available to it. So I don't think we'll go through these sheets in detail, but please do that on your own.
Yeah, Dick's done a really good job trying to squeeze in trees everywhere we can. The interesting thing about the corridor, there's a lot of empty tree pits. Over the years, trees have died, they haven't been replanted. So, you know, besides that, there's a lot of other opportunities where we're trying to green up the corridor and look for opportunities to get it. And anywhere we're doing hardscape treatments, you know, Dick specified a large opening tree grate and a little bit closer spacing with smaller trees that'll give us that tight look.
Yeah, later on, we're going to look at the tree grades in a little bit more detail. So now I'm going to move on to this sheet and the second sheet in the handout, concrete sidewalk and hardscape layouts. So what we've proposed in the past and we sort of landed on with the village staff is a 2-foot buffer between the curb and the sidewalk. This helps to visually articulate the pedestrian way, and it creates more interest on the ground plane. And what we're proposing for that is a textured pattern with a colored finish, which will be slightly grayer than the regular concrete for the main sidewalk. So we have 8 feet of sidewalk, which would be scored in a 4x4 grid with a picture frame finish, and then 2 feet of textured concrete with a slightly darker color just inboard of the curb. So you can see those things on this plan. And then that yellow, that rectangular yellow is the tree grate itself. And so some, sure.
So when we look at this, there's a dark line like a border here, but then that same dark is right here next to the tree grate. Is that the same finish as that?
That's an optional additional pavement detail that we could employ. Just to break up the concrete a little bit, you could carry that detailing from the grate to the right-of-way.
Yep. And the thing that we were looking to achieve with this project was increasing the width for pedestrian space. So right now, the sidewalk through the corridor is 5 feet and 5x5 tree lawns. We're changing the size of the tree pit. We're actually enhancing the size of it, but just changing the shape. So it's going to be 4 feet wide, 8 feet long, which gives us a 6-foot clear zone for pedestrians to walk. With the number of pedestrians that are in the village, we have the tree grate, the larger width for sidewalk. You can get a lot more pedestrian throughput. And the treatments, the stamp treatments, we've been working with Brian and Jason in the village. The project that was just done on Lifbridge Lane East has the fractured slate stamped concrete pattern with the slightly darker coloring. That's what's pictured on the 8.5 by 11 sheet. Looks really good. For a lot of reasons, it's a good treatment in the village, and it keeps consistency with the project. So it seemed like it made a lot of sense to implement that on this project.
And how wide is that buffer of the stamped concrete?
2 feet.
Yeah, 2 feet along the back of the curb line, just to give it a distinctive look. And then the score pattern on the concrete, it's interesting because in this condensed area where the roadway is the widest and the sidewalk's the narrowest, we essentially have 10 feet to work with. So what do we do with that 10 feet? We have 6 feet clear space dedicated to pedestrians, But we want to give it a distinctive look. So we were tossing around some ideas, and this was a good one that Dick had come up with. We do 4 foot by 4 foot squares instead of your traditional 8 foot by 8, or 5 foot by 5 foot score patterns for your sidewalk. So we change it to 4 by 4, and that'll give us sort of 8 feet wide by the tree grates. And then we just do that 2 foot strip. And at the tree grates, they're 8 foot long, so the 4 by 4 kind of cross pattern just blends right in. Yeah.
That's right. So everywhere adjacent to the tree grates, you'd always have a 4 by 4 grid. But between the tree grates, you could vary that to some multiple that's very close to 4. So if you didn't have an even increment of 4, you could still make this work. And visually, you wouldn't be able to tell it apart. Okay. So moving on now, so let's go to tree pits on the 3rd page. These are 3 examples of how a tree pit might work in a tree lawn. And the top one is a mulched circular tree pit. It doesn't have a very well-defined edge. I would propose like a spade edge, which would be a little cleaner. The next one down is a concrete ring, which is visually nice and it helps to contain the mulch, but it defeats the purpose of a tree lawn because it provides a little bit of a root barrier. And then at the bottom is no tree pit at all, and the grass just goes up to the tree. And the problem with that is it's not the mowing of the grass can damage the tree. So I would not recommend that.
Yeah, and we're looking at this in terms of like the initial installation and long-term maintenance. When the trees initially get planted, there's going to be a big disturbed area where the soil is, and naturally there's going to be some mulch installed in order to propagate tree health. And then we're just trying to plan for the future within the village, make sure that whatever's there is what you want and what can be sustained. Most of the trees in the grass areas, if there ever was a tree pit, there isn't anymore. The grass goes right up to the trunks. So we were looking at this as an opportunity to potentially plan for the future and future maintenance.
Moving on now to page 6, benches and trash receptacles. Okay, these are in order then, I guess.
Oh, did you print out the earlier one?
We have yours.
I think it's in this big packet.
It was pictured,
It's in the big one.
there's pictures in the supplemental, and the list is
So we did the
page
trees,
4 of 11 in the other
the
document.
concrete hardscape. You skipped over the tree grates in the sidewalk area, and you went to this. I just want to go back to this, which was the tree grates that you had.
Oh, that's a different handout, okay.
Yeah.
I apologize. So we're going to talk about tree grates now, and there's a separate handout. Can I see that, Dave?
Yeah, so the paperclip set, the second sheets, we're through the 11 by 17s, we're looking at the 8.5 by 11 sheets. Dick had identified some really nice tree grate designs that we wanted to go over with you guys now. So there's 7 8.5 by 11 sheets right in a row, which are the tree grates and the fits and finishes that he's gonna go over.
Okay, great. Yeah, so these are our 4 by 8 tree grates. They come in different types of metal, and they can also be finished with different colors. And you can specify the ring size. They can also be enlarged to accommodate trees as they grow, and they can have light wells if you want them to. And so you can,
What are light wells?
there are little openings in the tree grate to accommodate uplights for
Okay, thanks.
for lights. And so you can see there's 5 or 6 different options here for you to look at. They're all like high heel friendly, they claim to be. And,
Shouldn't be that close to the trees anyway. Come on,
right.
Stay on the sidewalk.
Generally not an idea to walk on them if you're in high heels. And then on this handout, you can see there's a variety of metal choices, and the metals can also be painted or powder coated if you like. On that handout. So,
Now,
yeah.
it was down here. I'm thinking back to June when we talked about some of the options between the plastic or the aluminum or the cast iron. Could you just recap that for us as the advantages of some versus others? Or I know some were very heavy,
Yeah,
but some,
these are heavy. The metal ones are all heavy, and that there is a recycled plastic alternative if you wanted to go that route, and they're very light. I think they're 35 pounds per piece, but it looks cheaper and it's a inferior product in my opinion. But that is an option.
so you would recommend the aluminum or the cast iron or for durability for 35 years?
Yeah, I would probably recommend one of these metals. I would definitely recommend one of these metals, maybe the cast iron or, the bronze.
Yeah, typical treatments in most street corridors, you're gonna get cast iron. That's the most cost-effective, and there's different treatments that can be done to it. It can have agents applied to it that help it patina into a rust color that'll give you the coloring that you're looking for. Some of the renderings that we did for the public meeting were kind of that rust color rendering. And with what the village has done around the main street with some of the art installations at Liftbridge Lane West with the patinaed metal, yeah, exactly. Right out in front of Village Hall, you have the Fairport sign. The tree grate could be an opportunity to try to tie some of this together. So Dick had some really good examples and options. There are a lot of different material choices. It seems to us the best choice would be cast iron. It's easy to come by, a little more cost effective than some of the more elaborate materials. And we can specify a treatment that'll maybe match some of the other installations that have already been in.
So I'm going to ask a question that I'm not trying to, I guess the question I have is, you're sharing all of these. Are you looking for us to give some feedback at a certain point in time? And when is that point in time?
Yeah, this is the fun stuff, right, of this project. And we want to make sure we get before the board and look at those fun gingerbread style pieces that you can start to do. They want to start designing around the applications that you like so they understand what to do. I think our intent is to get this out to bid sometime in December, the latest, maybe early January. So I think within the next month or so, we start to digest this. You don't have to, we're not figuring this out tonight.
Yeah,
You
that's,
understand
I'm
me?
like.
No. But take this, really think about what you like, some of
me
the
a long
factors
time to
associated with it.
choose.
We can definitely talk about it again when you have some questions and so forth about it. If there's other applications you want us to look at, we have time to research those and do that. So no, don't feel any pressure tonight.
Okay,
Just really
so
educate
this
yourself
is
on the-
really
on the
great
options.
information, and I want you to keep going, but let's put a pin in the fact that we need to bring this at like the next work session meeting and maybe a list of, okay, here's the things that I asked you to think about at the
Yep.
last meeting after this. Can you give me an idea of what you like?
Yeah, we'll follow up after this meeting and
Okay,
make sure that you
that's
have
great.
everything and start giving us your kind of likes or questions or pros and cons about some of these things.
Okay, thank you.
I love the one with the lights. I always worry about, do we chase it all the time? And is it a problem? And, it looks good in theory and it works the first day, but then does it work afterwards? I
Jason
don't
says
know.
it's his favorite one.
I love it. I've succumbed to the fact that it's probably not going to happen, but just for the uplighting of the trees and all the things that we do, it's going to look beautiful, but it
still
makes
is
me
upstate New
nervous.
York.
It makes me nervous.
Thank you for that pause so that I could clarify my own ideas about this. Keep
Okay,
going, please.
Yes, okay, so I apologize for bumping around here. I didn't realize The
Is-
attachments were separate from.
Is
the-
there, is,
We're following you.
So moving on now to benches
Just
and
real
trash
quick,
receptacles.
Dick, can I ask a really quick question?
Yeah.
Is there a place that you would recommend to see these like live in the ground? Like where are some really good tree grates? Should I go down to like University Avenue? The
Most of Rochester's tree pits are rubber. That's something that we recommended, or threw that out as a possibility earlier, but it was some of the village user groups didn't like that idea. I mean, they're all over the place. I can't really think of exactly where to point you to right now.
We'll certainly keep that in mind, and Dick's reached out to some of the local suppliers about these materials, and we can ask them, some of these ones that we've been looking at, that Dick tried to put together a short list of ones that seem like it'd work well. If we can find some local examples, absolutely, we'll get it
That
done.
would be awesome.
Yeah, there definitely are some in Rochester, but most of their tree pits have been replaced with rubber now.
Like I know the old Interloop project, right? They did all the structural soil, at least that's what I was told, right?
What was your question?
Yeah, the interloop,
Yeah,
Yeah.
the old Interloop fill-in project there.
yeah, which is interesting, because that's one of the places where they didn't put in any tree grates.
Oh, okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, that
I was gonna go
rubberized
straight down
treatment
there
is
and
a
not
lot
see
of
street
rubber out
grates,
there.
but see trees. Okay.
Okay, benches and trash receptacles. This is a village standard, and we are not proposing anything new here. If you go to page 6 of the handout, you can see the Do More bench and the trash receptacle that are already exist on Main Street. And I believe the village's plan is to paint everything a consistent black. Some of the cans are brown right now, and I believe they will be painted black.
Yeah, and one of the things that we're gonna do, there's a lot of benches and trash receptacles out on the street already. We have talked to Jason and the DPW about, the black coloring is a theme that we're going for through the corridor. So the existing structures that are in good shape can be refurbished. Dick's also gonna be looking at opportunities through the corridor where selective locations for more of them might benefit. So we'll be trying to rehab what we can and ordering new when necessary.
Yeah, I want to return to one more point on this drawing here. With the 10-foot sidewalk width, it's very difficult to locate benches within that distance that won't obstruct pedestrian circulation. So you'll see, if you look at the tree plans, you'll see we've noticed some areas where we think there are bench opportunities, little niches that are just beyond the right-of-way where there might be grading easements obtained on private property or in areas where the village already owns property, like the village lots. Where the village property abuts the right-of-way, that would be a great opportunity to stick in some bench pads that won't block pedestrian traffic. And if on this plan, you'll see we're showing a couple benches and a trash receptacle over here on the left, and that is just over the right-of-way. If a grading easement could be obtained there, then you could pop in some benches that wouldn't obstruct traffic. And there are opportunities like that up and down the corridor where you can just grab a little bit of space outside the right-of-way. So bike racks. What I often propose are these ring-style bike racks. A lot of manufacturers make them. This is on page 7 of 11. They're sort of sculptural, and they hold 2 bikes, and they don't take up a lot of space. Like with the benches and the trash receptacles, I think we would look to find little niches just outside the right-of-way and grading easements and maybe on a village property that abuts the right-of-way for things like this so that they don't block traffic. But there's also on this page 7, you can see there's opportunities for custom detailing too, with Fairport logo laser cut into bike racks. So you could have a look at that and tell us what you like.
One second. So the bike racks are a place where you can use anything to make a bike rack, something to hold up your bike or put a chain on it. really think about what that looks like. I showed the mayor a picture the other day. I was in Pittsburgh last week for a conference. In Pittsburgh, like Fairport, it's known for its bridges, right, going across the Allegheny. So they had bike racks made out of steel, very similar to the steel we've been using. They almost look like lift bridges. They're very small. They're 5 feet long, and it looks like a little Allegheny bridge going across. And they have them all over. They were kind of custom made, nothing crazy or too fancy or unattainable. But you can do anything like that. So if you want them to kind of look like the lift bridge out here and put a couple up there, or any art installation or an animal, or maybe they look like a bike, right? You've seen bike racks that are shaped like a bike. I mean, you can do anything that you want. So, and whatever you do, I mean, there's really no limitations to it, even from a cost perspective. So really think about what that looks like. Maybe there's something unique to every block that's different, and then we can create a bike rack around that.
Can you snip that image and mail it out to
I'll forward it to
everybody?
you guys, yes.
Sorry, real quick, just since I've got a few other notes we can chat later. Just since we're talking about it, for me, I love the bike racks, so long as it does what the bike advocates need it to do. Because sometimes you see that are like really cool and fancy, and I've talked with some, huh?
I don't like these ones. They're hard to lock your bike up to.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting.
I don't like them.
Well, either way, so something that first does that, right? Because you see some that get really fancy, and then I've talked with people who are biking around. They go, I can't lock my bike on this. It looks great, but I can't use it. So I think for me, that's just like the first thing, and then no.
No, I'm saying,
No, I think it's,
you can do whatever you
Yeah.
want, truly.
it's important that it's got the function,
Yeah.
but also
Form
we
and
can make it
function of
neat
art.
looking.
Yeah, exactly.
But I was really just getting at, don't let it be limited to what you see
Right.
everywhere.
Right.
Pick something fun, or we can have it made or laser cut or whatever, so
Right.
have fun with it.
Cool.
Dave, I think I'm going to hand off to you for items G through J.
All right, so street signs. This is another opportunity to get really custom with the corridor. What we're trying to do is avoid this looking like every other street on every other project that gets built. The guidelines for street signs come from the federal government, the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. It's a really boring read. I'd recommend against it. But really, it just comes down to like letter sizes and lettering, and you get a lot of leeway on colors, and there's also opportunities to have graphics and logos. So Dick started reaching out to some suppliers and manufacturers for different designs. So in the 8.5 by 11 sheets in the back, these were some of the examples that that supplier had shared with us, and this is to some extent the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of different things you can do with it. So we had started exploring some options, and really the point of the meeting today is we're presenting a few topics where there's opportunity for buy-in and input. This isn't a unilateral decision on what we're going to do with all this. So knowing that there's a bunch of options out there, the key things, every street sign in the corridor, rather than just the square metal bars with the holes in it, the standard street signs, we can do 3-inch round, black painted street sign posts that get embedded in the ground. In certain locations, we can have a decorative base for it. It just makes it look and feel more robust. And there's also certain street signs that you can do a black border around. I know we've tossed around the idea. It's starting to pop up more and more in different areas. Instead of just having a regular stop sign, they create frames around them. So a black frame. Functionally, it doesn't add to anything, but visually, it's a really good look. So that's something that we can explore as installing as part of this project.
Dave, just a question. So if the board was to select something in this ballpark, or regardless of color or design, we believe we can get that approved through DOT and not have any issues as long as the proper font or whatever's used?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure that's part of the record.
I was looking at, do you mind asking that question.
I just posed the question really, because I wanted Dave to explain it to you, is, as David alluded to, it's very, the fonts, colors, heights of signs, that's all regulated, it's heavy regulated. Like for instance, you'll notice, I mean, you generally get a green sign. We have some of the white ones with some of the border around it in the village, or you get a blue one. Outside of that, that's pretty much all that's really offered for these types of things. It's limited, so it's not like, man, who designed that? There is a book, you pick one, right? So when we were talking about this, I mean, outside of the color and whatever, that we can determine that later what that is, but I want to make sure when we whet the appetite, because this looks really great, to whatever degree you use it for, I want to make sure that we can use it. I mean, they are going to control the fonts and heights and some of the other types of things with it, but if we have some creative control over some coloring and some different poles, I mean, they're big on breakaways and galvanized and safety, and it's over the design that we're trying to look at, and I just want to make sure that they're not going to block that, going forward.
Yeah, so in the portion of the project that's owned and maintained by the village, you get all the leeway. Once we get up into the NISA owned maintained portion of it, they'll have opinions that we need to adhere to. They might not like the black, they might not like the black post, but once you get north of the railroad tracks, it's kind of changing the vibe a little bit. So we'll try to push forward as much as we can. So I do expect to get opinions on their portion of it, but the sign faces should be easy to get approved. I anticipate they'll have some opinions on the posts and maintenance. The challenge with any of these is when it eventually gets hit and falls down, how do you go about replacing it?
Yeah.
So if the village does want to have the look, the appearance that we're going for with these signs, it's also a long-term commitment to when something happens, you have to get the replacement parts
And have it ready to go, correct. That's Jason's problem. It's not our problem, it's Jason's problem.
yeah.
So, for clarity, your picture that you showed on page 8, it has that old-fashioned sign that's called existing with Pleasant Street, and it's the
That would
blue
be
and the maroon and all of that.
Illegal.
What?
That would be an illegal sign.
Well, okay, because there's also that sign for some of our parking, public parking, things like that. So those we can't have anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting. So those signs, you can still have signs that are like that general shape. You just have to separate the street sign from the other components of it. The other big thing that's different from how signs used to be, and you don't think about it until I point it out to you, is you can't have all capitalized letters in your words anymore. You have to have an uppercase and lowercase. It's the easiest way to tell that a sign is non-compliant. It's all uppercase. But if we were to pursue a design like that, that's in the gray area. I can't say definitively, like the signs that are out there now definitely couldn't be installed. It's a lot easier when you're just going with like the normal square sign, because the whole thing with signs is people being able to see them and read them, and the size of the letters and the shape of the letters is when you're in your car and you're driving and be able to see it while you're driving the speed limit. So the shapes of the signs are where it comes in. So what we have in the proposed are these companies they don't propose non-compliant signs. So what we get now is everything that would generally be acceptable. It's just with NISDOT in the mix, we just have to go through a higher order of approval.
NISDOT being New York State DOT.
Yeah, yes, I deal with them so often, it rolls off the tongue second. New York State Department of Transportation. So, these street signs, so these 5 examples are just some of the things that we were looking at. We really like the direction that this is headed. If the village has any opinions on things you'd like to see, logos, or doing something beyond just the Fairport logo, these are things that we can explore and we look into further. Design choices like this don't impact the way the rest of the project moves forward. So we're gonna design the location of the signs. We need to have these here. So we have some time to make some decisions on this. It's not like I need this today. Some components we need sooner than later, but most of this stuff is, as we continue to work on the design over the next couple of months through the fall here and get it ready for construction documents and bidding, we can just take a little bit of time to think about it and dial these in. So the next part that we wanted to just touch on is we didn't want to overlook the existing historical marker signs that are out there. With this project coming through, we're disrupting everything. These are fantastic signs, really informative, and frankly, they're in pretty good shape for the most part. The plan for the project is to carefully remove them, clean them up, store them. The posts and metal are a dark brown color. We could pursue an option to have those refurbished, painted black, match the rest of the corridor that we're installing. Just an option. As Dick does his layouts, his landscape design, we're looking to make sure that these get integrated in the locations, approximate locations where they are now. Make sure that we orient them in a position where readers are going to be safe from any hazards around them, and also that we have a hardscape around them so people can not be standing in the grass. Getting into these back parts, these are, so the next sheet on these are kind of cerebral topics that we've been talking about as a design group that we've been looking for opportunities to get in. We've been really focused on the nuts and bolts in this, but again, opportunities to make this project unique. Honestly, a lot of this stuff can be low cost. It's just high effort in order to pull everything together. So just high level, major topic, interactive, family-friendly elements. That from early on in the project, this is something that we've talked about, trying to find ideas and ways to mix things in. We really try to pay attention to other municipalities and other areas, like what are some good ideas floating out there. I've tasked Dick with trying to be creative because I'm an engineer, I'm not creative. One of the obvious things that popped out immediately is with all the trees that are going in a very thoughtful manner, the tree species that are being selected. It's a good opportunity to just provide some information on the trees. So whether it be plaques that are hung on the tree or stakes that are in the ground adjacent to it, this is one of those things where there's a lot of examples around this area, around the country, really. Like these are like really good examples that I found easily online in the Pacific Northwest, where it's just providing some information on the trees and a QR code that'll link you to a page where if you're an aspiring arborist, you can find out all the information that you need to know.
That's consistent with the previous presentation too. They talked about the village arboretum.
So these trees could all have a code, and that you could take your phone and scan the code, and then read about the tree you're standing in front of.
It's really cool.
Yep. What we are interested in is any other ideas that are out there. We've kind of presented this at earlier public meetings, just generally, without presenting a whole lot of ideas because it's all unique to the area. Some other things that have been talked about is scavenger hunt style treatments that we could do in the corridor. Geocaching is getting more and more popular. Are there opportunities to integrate that in the corridor? And really some of these ideas are just to kind of spark some inspiration. And in reality, a lot of this stuff can be done after the project's complete. We're coming through rehabbing the corridor, new sidewalks, new street lighting, a lot of stuff. If we don't forget about how we can implement more elements to really take this up a notch, we can plan for after the project's over. How can we keep growing this? How can we make it more and better?
One of the things that we talked about is, would the board like to see maybe an opportunity each side of Main Street where we could kind of do like we did on the southwest bank, where you have a base that's pretty, I guess, it's got electricity and it's ready to go to facilitate an art installation for some future project, and then incorporate that into design now, because otherwise you're ripping it up and it's not going to look uniform with whatever they're doing. Is that something you would want to do or invest in the future? You may not have the art ready now, right, or for the project, but when you're ready and when you have the funds and when that's available, you can design a piece or buy a piece that will fit on the base that's been provided as part of the project. Is that something the board would want to maybe see?
So the locations of the bases would have to be predetermined and
Right,
then-
we can fit it in the design to make sure it looks good and doesn't look like just kind of thrown in between something. So design it thoughtfully, but then you have a place so when you're ready at some point, it could be a year from now or 10 years from now, you have that opportunity to do that without disrupting the natural look of Main Street.
I know that's something that the design committee for the partnership has talked about recently, like the last several months, as well as the arts committee, that they really think identifying a location would be better than, like in the Bicentennial Park, the platform was built, and then it was very hard to find a sculpture that fit the base. So I think they're at this point, I'll double check, but I think at this point they just identify locations and, and when it happens, if it needs a base, it needs a base. But
Okay.
a lot of sculptures don't.
Maybe just mount it to the ground or something.
Yeah, and they just thought it was limiting to, your sculpture has to be 3 by 3.
Yeah, no,
and
that's
it can't be
perfectly,
that-
that's
right.
perfectly fine. I just wanted to make sure that you had the opportunity, because I want to make sure they design around it and there's a space
We
to do that
debated
or
it back
trees or
and
whatever.
forth, to have it included,
Yeah.
not included. And
Good enough.
It seems really forward-thinking, though, to have those locations kind of mapped out ahead of time, regardless of whether the base is required, right? I think that's
Well, I
also
mean,
a
we
great
can
idea.
leave a space where kind of all of a
Right.
sudden you're gonna know it as the village board. You walk down like, man, this is, instead of it being a 10-foot spacing between this area, it's 15 foot. Well, hey, this is a space that we can put something later, right? Okay.
I think they're leaning that way, so.
Pardon? What's that?
No preformed bases.
Okay, got it. Understood.
Yeah.
It's easier.
But thank
I
you
like
for
it.
thinking
I like
arts
it.
and all of that.
I like it.
They're picking spots.
Yeah. Those are exactly the kind of ideas we're looking for. Our project is a little bit constrained because we have to stay within the highway boundary. There are certain locations where the village owns property, and we've been coordinating with Fairport Electric. They're really trying to push for planning for the future. So if there's locations that are identified, then we can make sure that there's a handhold there, and at the very least, that you only have to disrupt the ground up to that point.
I did go through my notes so I could be prepared for tonight. All new street lighting, right? The poles and all of that.
Yes.
Will they be like programmable or have any sort of energy efficient features? Like they'll dim and come on at dusk, or can you? We have a very energy conscious community, so if some way to do that.
The lights will be LED. They'll have photo eyes, so they'll come on when it gets dark and go off exactly when it starts to get sunrise. Like all our lights are that way.
Great.
They don't come on by a timer. And then these will be dimmable on Main Street.
And another concern when we met with the partnership, and I think Jason was there, there was a real concern about, we're going to have a gorgeous tree canopy in maybe 10 or 15 years. But being able to decorate for holidays and spirits and lights, because when those lights go up and they light up Main Street, it is just a wonderful ambiance. So I know the ideas that we're kicking around was, in the meantime, until the trees grow, is there a way to plug in, holiday decorations or seasonal decorations into the light posts? As a way, we have a 10, 15-year stopgap where we need to be able to have a beautiful environment.
The lights will have that opportunity to have electricity on them. They will all have the opportunity to put banners on them, and they will all have the opportunity to put hanging flowers.
Fantastic. So we could have big lit up wreaths if we want, or snowflakes, or
Yep.
hearts, whatever.
And then they'll be like the ones on Lippridge Lane East, which is great because you're not confined to wherever they drilled the holes in them. On Lippridge Lane East, you can have a 30-foot banner or a 2-foot banner. They slide all in the slots. We can put speakers in there. You can do anything you want at any given time because there's an opportunity to run conduit in there. It's built into to the base. and then you can adjust it to wherever you want to see these things. So it's really, really versatile to whatever your needs are now or what you don't know what they want to be in the future.
So I guess I'm worried about a year from now, holiday 2025, being able to have the opportunity. I mean, will we be able to, decorate a whole, but
Yeah.
elaborate, create an environment for the holidays and for.
There's so many creative options that can be had with this. That was a fantastic segue into my last point. I don't even have to say it now. Decoration opportunities. It was the last page of my handout. So banners on new light poles, hanging flower baskets. These new light poles are going to be taller than the ones that are out there now. You're going to get a lot of elevation out of these with some creative thinking and some forethought. I know that they're getting power receptacles installed up the banner arm so you can plug into them. There's opportunities to run catenary lighting, like the string lights. You could string up some of these light poles if you wanted to. There's engineer, not creative, but there are.
Versatile to do what you want, and that's the point. Matt knows when we have ideas, plan for what we didn't bring up, because then we'll ask about it a year later. It's like, why can't we do that? Because we didn't plan for it. So these things should do everything that a light can do in 2024 when buying it. So.
Because we might be putting some lights from
That's great.
That's
Yeah,
great.
It's great.
Yeah,
Do it.
I just want to make sure it's like,
Do it.
oops, we forgot to think about it, and then, 2025,
Don't forget
we're
to
like,
get me my remote control
Everything
to
you
change
brought
the
up here
colors.
today, we can do and we've discussed.
great.
Yeah. A major component of the design is we're absolutely trying to keep all of that in mind. With the changes to the corridor, removal of existing trees, planting in so many more trees, but at a smaller size until they grow. Trying to make sure that we're doing everything I can. We're trying to think in 3D. We're trying to think about how this project's going to look, how we can tie things together, and some of this is just creative thoughts from the village's side. If you guys have thoughts about how you might want to implement things, now's the time to plan for that. We can get that. We can get the parts and pieces implemented into the design, whether that's electrical design or structural. We're getting pads and concrete or grass areas where we want less. So. And with that, that is the end of everything I had to present.
Thank you very much.
Is there any streetscape amenity as you've visited all towns for conferences, those types of things that you've seen that's just, wow, it'd be cool if we maybe could consider that? We talked about this once before. Is there any element that you've seen that we should be looking at that you'd really like to see, something that just caught your eye in your travels? Outside of what we talked about?
Mosaics.
Do a little Google
Mosaics.
search.
I was talking to the library director, Carl. One of the things that he brought up at I think it was the merchants meeting, was he feels really strongly about trying to some way visually reflect that the Thomas Creek runs under Main Street. And when I was looking at the choices in terms of like shading for the stamped oh, where'd that come from?
From Carl.
Oh, do we have that? So
That's
that's
mosaics.
exactly what thank you. It just made me think.
That's from Carl.
There you go. It made me think this. It made me think that there would be a very simple way to somehow, use the correct color to reflect water on the stamped concrete in that particular area at probably a minimal cost, with some sort of pedestrian information sign of that the Thomas Creek wetlands runs here, like maybe some sort of a map, or maybe it is a QR code that people scan. I just think that's a really cool feature in our village that nobody really knows about.
The amount of times I've told people, hey, you're walking over it's a bridge. It's anything over 20 feet's a bridge.
And that was Carl's. I can't take credit for that idea.
Now, having noodled this, here, pass it down.
Yeah.
The only thing I was thinking of is very difficult to pull together a project like that between now and next summer. But I was thinking if you if the village likes it or wants to go that way, when you're pouring the concrete, I don't know if you leave a swirled border edge in there. Or you can dig it out and then mosaic it later, you know what I mean? Some way that you're not,
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking crazy mosaic. I was literally just thinking like, the concrete should be blue there.
Yeah.
I was like that, I guess.
but that could
And
be,
I just, before we get too far, this
Yeah.
is where like, what I have to say just sounds like a wet blanket, because that's actually not part of our project. That's the New York State DOT. The
Oh.
New York State Department of Transportation is actually building that whole section of it. Our project is going up to their limits,
Oh, that's right.
gapping over it, and then picking up where they leave off. So it can be done. New York State DOT has reached out to us to try to coordinate and collaborate. They want to be a partner with the village as far as I've been able to take with it.
That's really great.
In whatever way they can. So it could be possible. They've already bid their project. It's,
Is it happening?
yeah, as far as I know, that is, yeah, they've told us to prepare. Their project is gonna be under construction at the same time ours is. Options like that can be arranged. I just wanna let it known that you gotta deal with a whole different entity.
I'll just add that blues are hard to achieve with colored concrete. But you could do that with some sort of painted surface on the dried concrete, like a tough coat or something. But even some of those colors are limited in availability. The mosaic idea, I think, is pretty neat.
Isn't it
yeah,
cool?
Yeah.
I was showing my pictures of boxed trees from Killarney Island, Ireland, that I took 2 weeks ago. That,
Movable trees.
yeah, they're in boxes, they're mobile, and they're in an old town, downtown area, which is all paved surfaces, bricks, and they have trees that are in like a 4x4 box. And the trees themselves are probably, I don't know, those trees look like they're like 15 feet? No, more than that. Yeah. 15 or 20 feet, they're pretty tall. It was just an interesting idea that I ran across 2 weeks ago.
And then there's box trees where
The artists paint.
they wrap them.
Yeah,
They're way cool.
so,
Yeah.
You know, just wrap
Thank you.
box trees.
Sorry.
go ahead.
I've been
Jump
I've been
in.
wanting to listen to the conversation. A few things as I'm kind of using my graphic scale and stuff here. It looks like average spacing on the trees is maybe like 40 feet, but it seems like you're taking into account the size of the tree that you're potentially going to be putting these next to. I was noticing like with the larger trees, maybe about 40. In between, we're talking maybe more like 30, 35-ish with the smaller trees. Does that kind of jive with the approach that you're going as you're refining it?
Yes, again,
Okay.
to try to maximize the tree canopy.
Awesome.
So on that one exhibit, this one here, the tree spacing here is 36 feet.
Yeah.
So, and these are comparable to honey locust, right?
Okay,
So we
yeah.
could very well put honey locust back in there.
Okay. Okay.
Smaller trees, I would space closer together.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense because of all the cool things we could do, I think it's also important that you definitely nail the must-haves, right? Of the things that are going to definitely make it successful. And it's the tree canopies. It's making sure that there's people feel comfortable walking back and forth. So I think that's great having that increasing the space for people to walk to 6 feet. I'm sure maybe in some places it might be even more depending on where the buildings are and where the right-of-way is. So I think that's great. I know this has kind of been answered, but it sounds like the general response to how quickly do you think we'll get back to a canopy that we're excited to get to is in the 15-year range?
That's a reasonable number.
Okay.
It's hard to say because trees have different growth rates.
Right.
So, and we plan to put in a diverse palette of trees.
Which I think is good because that also keeps us, when we're looking at sustainability, I don't know if folks know, in many communities, there's an Elm Street. And that's because there were elms planted on that street until Dutch elm came through. And we want to avoid that. So, sorry to interrupt on that
Yeah,
point.
and, well, another mistake that landscape designers made in the past was planting the whole street with elm trees. So there wasn't biodiversity, and so Dutch elm disease came along,
Right.
wiped out everything. So what our strategy here would to put in a lot of different species, so that there's more, the village would have more resistance to a
Right.
devastating attack on its trees.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're trying to, one of the other things I don't want to lose sight of either is we're excavating pretty deep underneath the existing grade in order to get structural soils in there. The tree health isn't just the correct species and the spacing, it's making sure the
Right.
root propagation and tree grates and spacing that allows plenty of water, and Dick can speak to it.
Yeah, another thing that would impact the size of your tree canopy, like right out of the gates, is the size of the tree that you install. You
Okay.
you can get bigger trees, but you have to pay for them. Generally, I budget $1,000 for a tree installed at an average size. So, I think we had 78 trees here or something, new trees. That's roughly $78,000 in trees.
Okay.
If
How big around are we saying when they go in?
Typically 2.5 inches at
Okay.
chest height.
Yeah.
That's DBH.
Right. Okay.
And, but that's the medium size available in the nursery trade. You can get them bigger, but
Gotcha.
they're more expensive, obviously.
Oh, right. I know one time you came here, I zoomed out, and I'm sure you know exactly where I'm running with this. Have we had a chance to reach out to our good friends at RTS, or kind of gauge their reaction to bus stops and whether this is something we could plan for in the future as a part of this?
RTS is, it's an agency we haven't had a chance to coordinate with
Okay.
in depth, but we have had experience working with them. RTS is always a challenge because they're constantly understaffed and underfunded.
Right.
But yeah, so we've been planning for the bus stops in the location that they are. But yeah, we're a little limited in space in a lot of the areas where the bus stops are. So how much can we do with it other than just make sure that there's space for people that are waiting for the bus to not be standing in mud?
Right.
Who decides on the location of the bus stops?
Generally, that's planners at RTS that choose the locations with input as the community gives, but ultimately they end up selecting the locations.
Right. Just like they select the routes and the timing.
We'll reach out to them and look at like our opportunities. What are some opportunities
Yeah.
for different bus shelters and things like that? To your point, you and I have had this discussion. Having a cheap plastic shell that's all scratched up with plexiglass, I think we could probably do something a little better. And hopefully, with a project like this, we're willing to invest in something a little more substantial.
Okay, great. But it sounds like then that would be up to them, and then maybe we'd be on the hook for maintenance. Is that kind of
No.
how
it's
that?
theirs.
Okay, so they'd be on the hook for maintenance on it too.
Yeah. Yeah, generally the way that RTS bus shelters work is they pay for the installation, they pay for the maintenance, it's theirs.
Right.
Which is why it gets challenging to work with them sometimes. They're underfunded,
Right.
like a lot of other places. So yeah, we can certainly reach out, get the conversation going. And then on a design like this, forward thinking is just making sure, like, if they decide that this is a location where they can do an enhancement, that we don't have anything in the way keeping that from happening.
Okay, all right. Yeah, it'd be cool to have just hear what conversations come up next time we have a chance to chat. I was gonna say, and remind me, the lights that we're looking here are similar to the lights on Liftbridge Lane East, right? Okay, yeah, because at one point when you said taller lights, I was like, oh, dear Lord, we're not talking like Cobra light height, right? We still have the lights in a pedestrian scale, but we have, right, okay. We already talked about coordination with the second bridge. I do have to admit, I'm a little skeptical of stamped concrete. I'll need some convincing on that. Have we looked into pavers as an alternative? I mean, I know they're more expensive.
Yeah, it's always, that's an easy button option. Pavers are all over the place and they can always be accounted for. There are some challenges with pavers. Talking with the guys, talking with DPW, Liftbridge Lane East just had this exact stamp treatment put in. Initially it looks great. The thing that's good about it is long-term maintenance, as these guys were talking about. The maintenance over something like the stamped concrete versus pavers is the stamped concrete is easier labor. If there's ever something that needs to go on and you want to match the treatments, it's just standard sidewalk concrete that gets poured in and it colorizes a release agent with a really shallow depth stamp on it. So it's a subtle stamp. And pavers are just a much more labor intensive treatment. And if there's ever any maintenance that's required, the costs go up with it as well.
So I agree with you completely about stamp concrete. What we did over here, I don't know how many hours we had conversation about it for the convincing purposes. What we did over there is we just picked a different shade of gray because stamped concrete looks the best the first day it's poured and then it degrades. The reds of the 90s and all the stampings, no. So we went with just a little bit darker shade of gray than the concrete so they age the same, but if we have to replace it, it's something, we can do in-house. It's regular concrete, and again, it's just a release agent that goes on top. And it doesn't have, if you looked at that, it's kind of like a slate fractured finish over there. And we already bought the mats for it. It's not something where it has like a deep brick kind of a joint look, so it's not thick. You can still plow it. It's not going to catch an edge. It's not going to crack because it freezes within that corridor and starts to break up and pothole, if you will. The pavers we're trying to get away from the tripping hazards. Pavers, again, they're never better than the first day in the first winter. They all start to move, do this, weeds, what have you. We're trying to avoid that because we know it's just going to happen eventually at some point, right? Weeds get in everything, and every one of those bricks is a joint. Open to doing whatever you want. If that's what the board wants to do, it's fine. We were just trying to find things that, we can maintain because it's not if, it's when we got to rip up the concrete for a lateral break, gas main break. Something's going to happen. It's going to happen actually every single year. And how do we mimic and match everything that's there without worrying about, well, this was put in 3 years ago, so now this is a different color, this is a different fade. I can't find that brick anymore, whatever the case may be.
No, sure, shooting. It'll happen like 2 months after it's done.
It will. I promise you it will.
Okay,
I'm not trying to convince you any
Sure,
other
I'm
way.
not
I'm just trying to
sure
give
not.
you some background on some of the rationalism or some of the rational conversations we've had and going down the rabbit hole with that and why we were kind of thinking this might be an opportunity to do it because it's not labor intensive, it's not expensive. We can replicate it anywhere we want to put it, and it ages well with what the existing infrastructure is.
I think at least for me, it's easier to the main thing for me is with that is right. You're putting the joints in every 4 feet or so. It's easy to know that it's not right an actual stone piece. I think it's easy. It could be easy to believe that you got a 2x4 piece that goes, and I could see that being a convincing aesthetic, right? But yeah, that's just where my head's at is when you're walking. Can I believe this?
The 4x4, the pedestrian corridor,
Right.
that 6 foot, it will be just concrete that's just saw cut into squares. The only stamp portion will be that 2 foot boundary or buffer between the curb and
Right.
inward. And then also, if you guys select, it'll be that area that's directly behind the trees. Should you want to do a little treatment just to kind of break up the
Right.
monotony of the 4x4. And that's up to you. We can decide whatever you want that to look like. If not, we just keep it concrete.
Okay.
The pattern is fractured slate, so a little 4x4 square. In historic neighborhoods, you get the blue stone sidewalk pavers, and they have that their slate. They have that slate texture. So
You're saying we should do bluestone?
yeah. No, I'm
I know
actually
that's-
granite, hard
I don't think
granite.
trees would do that. Yeah.
But take a look. There's we did a little area right in front of Damien's to
Right.
assist with bringing people out to the front edge and dining and being outside, which has been really, really successful. So go out there and see what that looks like. It'll be very, very similar to that look and feel. And if you like, tell us what you like, don't like, color, what have you.
And sorry, go And then, a couple places, just in terms that I think would be cool for us to think about, like any future art, I think the art plan calls for like some locations like at the gateways. So like maybe Church and Main, finding some way within maybe one of the, I started diagramming around here. Maybe there's a place we could queue up for something there. That could be kind of a neat way to call an entry to the downtown or along those lines. But
I wish we had bigger. Right.
Yeah, I looked at that. I was like,
so
shoot.
What you just said makes perfect sense. But if you go over there, there's 8 to 10 feet over there to work with in a round area. Then you know how the semis take the corner and hit it.
So it's
with
just
this
called the
pro-
hood
With
ornament.
this
then.
project, we even said, is there an opportunity to change these radiuses to make that turn a little better? We're working with such confined areas that really weren't built for 88-foot tractor trailers.
Yeah.
With the trailer on it. And then one of the corners actually, and then you're putting, within those corners, all of them will have either a stoplight fixture, a crosswalk
Right,
fixture.
yeah.
And then any type of road signage within that 10-foot area. And then I think the one on the northwest side next to the Baptist Church, we can't do anything with that, just due to the fact that there are utilities for Frontier and gas mains there, and the vaults that are there are very shallow to the surface. So if you notice, you walk over there and it's all cracked and spidered. We can go pour new concrete there tomorrow, and just due to those locations and the height of those fixtures in the ground, it will look like that within a year of us getting through this project, and you're going to lose your mind, as you should. I'm just letting you know there's very limited things we could do there with that. If you guys say, hey, you want to put a rubberized asphalt there that looks great, and so people can run over it, because that's just what happens there at that corner. You really notice it when tractor trailers are going southbound on Main, and then they take a right to go on West Church Street to get to the thruway. You see this a lot. They run over it 4 feet into the walk. It's a really weird situation. I'm not sure how to really address that. We're working with them. We can't even push it back some because the Fairport Baptist Church's right-of-way goes right up to the concrete. I think our concrete's a little on their property. I shouldn't be saying that loudly.
Hey, we got an easement.
So we could.
got an easement.
So it's just really challenging right
Right,
there. I'm not
yeah.
sure what to do. It's just we're really limited in how it's done.
Yeah. No, you're right. I forgot about the
I would
all
love
the
to do
utility
some
poles
type
and
of
stuff that are there.
gateway or art or something. It'd be really nice to kind of say, hey, you've arrived. This looks really nice. I'm
Yeah.
afraid somebody would hit it, but
Yeah.
we can try.
No, that's I mean, if there's some place in any of those medians, because you're right. There's the curb cuts and the things that are there.
But it's a good point.
But-
I mean, perhaps near the Sunoco where it's got all that kind of that lava rock and there's kind of an
I
empty
was hoping
space.
that was included.
It's not. It's not.
It's not.
But
I checked.
perhaps it could be one of those things where we go out and try to get an easement, and maybe we can put a little installation of something there.
Yeah.
And kind of clean it up a little bit as long as we maintain it, type of thing. So
Okay.
I don't think anything's off the table. Whether that happens with this project next season or we just facilitate it over time, I think it's worthy of having the conversation.
Yeah, just something thinking down the road. Yeah. Cool. That's Sorry, I've been. I know it was a little bit of gauntlet.
Adam, when you were talking about the stamped concrete,
Yeah.
and we're talking about the bluestone like you did in front of,
What kind of?
yep. But what do you think about the 2-foot edge having a different pattern there? The 2-foot edge, because there's also the brick designs. So instead
Right, yeah,
of using pavers there, could we use a paver design there? Would
Yeah.
that have a better
So-
look? Yeah, but it would have a totally different look, because I also love to see those crisp bricks right down the curb line are so classy.
Yeah. Well, and that's sort of maybe I didn't describe it well enough. That's where I was saying, like, I think that could be, at least in my mind, a believable 2x4 slate piece. I think could work with that, unless, or do you mean something else? Yeah, so it'd have
It is
that
stamped
stamped look, like the stamped. What do we call it? Something slate?
Fractured slate.
Fractured slate pattern. On
Oh,
that,
I
or
was
are you-
thinking in that 2-foot area,
Right behind the curb line.
on
Yeah.
the curb line, doing,
like what you're
Right,
seeing
brick or something
on
else.
page 3 here.
Yeah.
yeah, the shape of brick, something geometric, something nice and straight to mimic the brick or the paver. And then if we choose to do the pieces in the sidewalk themselves, they could be the bluestone pattern. We're talking just two different patterns. of the-
Maybe.
That's what I mean, think
Fractured
about.
slate. Yep. Yeah, and I would definitely shy away from doing
Yeah, that would be-
pavers like in the pedestrian route area. You wouldn't want to do that.
No.
And that's why we've floated doing the fractured slate in there because the low profile stamped look works well for pedestrians. For ADA compliance, you have to retain no more than a 1/4 inch elevation difference.
Okay.
I was just trying to think about the fractured slate in such a limited space might look awkward. Because you're gonna need the 8x8 to pull it off and have it look like fractured slate. Versus if you just got a 2-foot narrow band, it's gonna be just
Might
wiggle
look like
lines,
darker,
you know?
darker concrete. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just gonna be wiggly. You're gonna miss that effect.
I agree with Brian and Adam. I'm not a big stamp fan. And my biggest problem with it is I don't think it's authentic. And I have a problem with stamped brick designs because you still have to have the control joints, and you, like Adam was saying, it's obvious that it's not real brick. This fractured slate, I think, isn't like that. It looks like decorated concrete, but I don't really feel like it's pretending to be stone or anything. It's just adding a little texture to the concrete.
You're the expert.
And you could even make it more authentic by scoring it every 4 feet like we're showing in this drawing. So it's
looks like a 2x4.
right, and you don't have to score it every 4 feet. You would like every 8 feet or something. But anyway, in my opinion, this texture is preferable to a brick texture. A lot of
I respect that, yeah.
Emily, or wait, Tracy, are you complete?
Oh, yeah, till something else,
Okay.
percolates.
Emily, we're going to you until something else percolates.
I want us to use the word uniformity. I think anytime you have something that's uniform in color and style, things tend to look bigger, longer, cleaner. So in my opinion, a lot of different shading differences, the minute you start breaking up color, it changes the visual look of the entire piece. So then it starts to look smaller and more compact. And I think, this is just my opinion, you're asking, so I'm telling. If we were to keep the 2-foot border actually the same shade, I'm not sure what we want to stamp it, that's another discussion. But if we were to keep it the same shade as the actual concrete itself, the sidewalk, I think visually it would look bigger and more expansive and spatial. The minute we start changing the colors and breaking up the color with a variety of shades and colors, I think it starts to look more busy, if you will, and smaller. I mean, not small, but it doesn't look as uniform, and
Yeah, because
you want to look down that sidewalk and just see.
an alternative
flat.
treatment could be like building off of what you're saying. So just thinking about this in the 10-foot width that we have from the curb to the
Right.
highway boundary. In the tree areas, 4 feet of that is the tree grates, the
Right,
trees.
so that's already,
Yeah, and then we have 6 feet that is the pedestrian route.
right.
Traditionally, like normal the highway construction is just doing that as standard concrete all the way through. So that's the default. And we'd be doing probably 6x6 score lines and expansion joints all the way through the pedestrian route from one end to the other. We were playing around with some ideas with where we could do something a little different. A default option would be to do your 6-foot concrete, so when you're looking at the sidewalk, you see it all the way up through. And then we'd probably expand that 2 feet to the entire 4 feet, doing it a treatment so that the tree pits are kind of continuous through. Still walkable, usable area, but the pedestrian route is highlighted by standard concrete, and whatever treatment that we decide for that 4-foot area would be different.
It's a whole nother option, Emily.
Okay. I'm not sure about that, but just the idea of keeping things somewhat more simple and uniform, I feel feels better to me. Not so many different patterns and different colors. The other thing I really, I'm gonna use that word uniform again, but this time in terms of signs. So we just put new entrance signs at the gateways to our community, and we went with blue and yellow. So now if the wording is yellow,
That's white.
gold. The Erie Canal is gold. Yeah. The large lettering is white, and then the smaller lettering underneath on the Erie Canal is gold. So it's blue, white, and gold. Just something to think about. You know, if we're doing signs, I feel like our signs should have some sort of theme, color theme to them. I think too many different colors and shades is just doesn't seem to think it's like we don't know what we want to be. Like, we should know what we want to be. We should be, what are we? I don't know, but we picked blue and yellow and white for the entrance signs. So just keep thinking about that. And also, I know this is a long way out and this is just a detail and this can be done at any time. The flags that because we'll want the flags probably on Main Street as well. We just had these really great flags, Liftbridge Lane East, so some sort of uniformity with that as well, just to think about that. I'm sorry, what did I say, flags? Banners.
They're the same thing, there's some flags and there are some
Yeah.
banners.
Thanks for reading my mind. I meant banners, but yeah. I said flags, but I meant banners. But yeah, I think just keeping things sort of consistent. Like the repetition.
Something I would suggest to think about that ties in with that.
Yeah,
Banners and flags are not that expensive.
yeah,
And if you drive around in other communities close by, like ones that start with the letter P, in their village, you will find that they change their banners
all the time.
based all the time.
So maybe
based on
those don't have to be
things
uniform, but I think our signs should be uniform.
It's really nice about the banners like those, there's like the
Yeah,
highest quality.
we just change them.
It was like $1,200 for the whole street. It was so cheap. So it's nice. If you have opportunities to do a lot of simple things or what have you that you like.
And then I want to, let's see, I'm not sure which order I should do this in. I think I'll do this order. So we're going to put in these beautiful trees, and they're going to grow. And just like when children grow, they can grow unruly. But if we teach them and trim them and mold them, and we maintain them, just like our children will well behaved and have manners, our children should have, or our trees should also be nicely, right? So the maintenance schedule of trimming these really great trees as they grow so that they do form that great canopy is probably going to be a huge, I'm sure I'm speaking to the choir here about that. But
Yeah, I think that, and if this is, no, I think that's a really good point.
Pruning.
Pruning those.
pruning,
With
it's
the-
called
with-
pruning.
Yeah.
We prune our children and our trees. I'm just kidding.
No, and I think that's a good point, and making sure that that gets baked into the, all the information with the tree board, which I'm sure they're already aware of. And I think we'll be able to do that. Or was there a certain barrier that you're concerned?
Or
just to make sure that we keep an eye on
it's
it.
built into our budget and maybe this is not something DPW can add to their plate, their very full plate. Maybe this is something as a board we need to consider.
Planning on having people to maintain that, and then the southeast bank that the board approved, that's gonna require people. So
Professional.
part of our budget, if you remember the discussion, is we chose not to do maintenance through the landscaper, so we can hire someone to work 6 months out of the year and have them 40 hours a week. Their job will be to live, breathe that canal bank and the Main Street corridor.
And the other really great thing, I mean, we did choose native plantings, which have adjusted to the precipitation in this area. That is why we choose native plantings. So they supposedly need less water and more adaptive to the environment that we planted them in, correct? That's why we chose native. They need less water.
That's right. That's one of the
Okay.
benefits of native plants.
So I understand, it's hard keeping up with the water, right? The watering our plants and all of that. But one of the advantages to choosing native is that it requires less, and it's actually more adaptive to the precipitation of the area, correct?
Yes, exactly.
With cultivars, they're often cultivated to maximize some of their most beneficial qualities. And if we choose the tree correctly, then your pruning would be minimized,
Okay.
right? So right now, what's happening along Main Street is so many of the trees are growing into the overhead wires that necessitates a lot of tree pruning. If we picked a smaller tree that wouldn't grow into the wires in the first place, then
Less trimming.
right. So
That's
I
right.
wouldn't expect that a lot of pruning would be required to maintain a nice shape for the trees if we do a good job selecting the right tree for the right
Okay.
place.
That's great news.
And with just one more comment about cultivars. You'll see on the plant legend or plant schedule I passed out that a lot of cultivars are included. They technically are not. I mean, they're cultivars, many of them are cultivars of native plants, but they're not actually considered native because they're a cultivar, and they may not have the beneficial qualities that the species does. And so in another context, like in an arboretum or a park or a backyard, I think it would be a lot easier to use a palette that is exclusively native and species alone, not cultivars. But when you're planting on a streetscape, it becomes more and more important to the conditions are tough, with salt and heat gain, and it's a very challenging environment for trees. So then we reach into the cultivar palette a little bit more.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then I'm going to go back. I know Brian and I, we've talked about this before, maybe just informally, but to me, this project has three very, very important components. Like it's the cement sidewalks, it's the street lighting, and it's the crosswalks. Like to me, like the street signs, the benches, the garbage cans, all of those we can add at any time. And I think this is a $5 million project, and I know things are very expensive, and we can also run into things that are unknown. And so we as a board, I think it's very important to be sure that we keep this under budget. And so I just want to just put this budget comment out there that these other things are fantastic, and I'm not saying that we don't want them, but we can add them. We could add them later. We could know where we want the bench. We could know where we want the art installation. We could know where we want, whatever it might be, have it sort of mapped out, and then add as the years go on, like a wish list. But getting those main things, so we have this great sort of
trees to that main.
I'm sorry, trees. Oh my gosh, how did I forget trees?
4 things.
Four. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know how I forget trees.
Crosswalks.
And the crosswalks. But if we have this great canvas from which to sort of add to, like that to me feels really comfortable and a really financially or fiscally responsible, like from a board's perspective. So
You've made my evening, because that's all I think about.
I
And
care.
I couldn't tell you
care
more
about
that
those
we are
four
trying to
things.
do it that way, and every time we have a conversation, it goes down a rabbit hole internally, and I'm like, the costs are extreme, right? So we got to keep this within this mindset of 5 million, and I've told you guys this before. We can have a $7 million streetscape. Can we afford it today? Technically, yes. But your ability to respond, adapt, take on new initiatives later are gone, right? And then you're going to do that at the expense of paving Winding Brook, or I got to replace storm sewers over here. Well, sorry, we can't do that for 10 years because we put all our eggs in one basket. So trying to find that good balance of really providing a great quality product that's functional and something you can be proud of, and it's beautifying everything else. But is it going to be Disneyland tomorrow? No, and I don't think it has to be, right? And to your point, you can always add things later with smart design and those types of things. So we're trying everything we can to keep within this $5 million procurement budget.
All right, I know we're trying to wrap this up. One last question.
that's it
Super,
for me.
super easy. So, and I'm glad, Emily, I'm glad you brought it up because it made me think about it. Have we done a cost estimate on this yet?
Yeah.
And
there's-
are we on budget?
Yeah, we've been working on a cost estimate right from the beginning of the project. It helped inform some of the choices that have been made to date. As we're getting into detailed design, we're getting a better idea of exactly what's going in on the project. Just this last week, we got the detailed electrical design from Fairport Electric. So I know that's a big portion of the budget, huge portion of the budget. So we're bouncing questions back and forth with Fairport Electric to make sure that we're getting that dialed in and we have an accurate estimate. The next stage of the project is preparing the advanced detail plan submission that has to go to New York State DOT. That'll also get submitted to the village for review. As part of that, it's extremely important that we have a cost estimate to go along with it. What you see on paper, this is what it costs. And if we start identifying things like it's kind of inching up a bit, we can look to cut, we can look to break out alternates, we can do portions of the design that there's just not money for now, but it's planned for in such a way that so at some point in the future, when you do have the money, you could continue the project. So more to come.
But everything, no red flags. At least not now.
Yeah, so
Uh-oh.
up to date, there hasn't been anything on the project that's been overly concerning. I have been anxious to see what the lighting design is gonna look like.
But the electrics, it's gonna be it's a very expensive component to what we're doing. I mean, you're talking about really beautiful, high-end streetlights that are very modular to do and meet your expectations now and in the future about what you want to do, because once it's there, it's there. The amount of conduits and infrastructure, the non-sexy stuff that's in the ground you don't see is very, very expensive. To meet those demands, I mean, we're gonna be able to have electricity throughout, not just on the lights, but throughout the corridor and different types of electricity components to meet, whether it be food trucks or different types of options in the future. I mean, remember when we're building this is for the next 30 years. You don't know what you want to see 5 years from now when that great idea pops up and it's like, well, gee, now I'm inhibited by the infrastructure that we should have thought of. So they're really trying to think about all that. But conduit, they used to give it away. Now it's probably one of the most expensive commodities out there. So we're trying to meet all those needs. But again, if you guys will have to make some decisions about what your priorities are. So what do you really want to do? Do you want to save money back for certain other amenities? Do you really want to make sure your infrastructure is good and maybe that takes away from something? But these are some data information we'll be able to give you when you kind of define what you want this to look like and see. But if we're in the right ballpark with these types of amenities and we start massaging these things, then that's great.
Yeah.
But the sooner you have, if you have that big, great idea or something you're really stuck on or something you really want to see or incorporate to the point you can, I would ask that you forward those items to me as quickly as possible so that we can digest them in here, put money to it, digest them. How are they going to be maintained? Those types of things. That would be great. And we will be talking about this again. This is not, this is just breaking the ice.
Okay, I'm giving you your last chance. Last chance down there. Tracy looks like she's got another question.
No, I'm good.
All right. I'm gonna call this discussion, to everybody's happiness, the end of this discussion for this evening. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Dick, and thank you as well. And we really appreciate you coming and being willing to answer all these questions that come up in our minds. So, and we look forward to another conversation in the future.
It feels really good to just have the conversation again. So thank you for making the time. Okay.
Yeah, happy to be here. Excited to be part of the project with you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks again, David. Okay. Do you have another question?
Yeah, where it shows green, that's tree lawn. And I think that's what's there currently.
It's probably existing tree lawn. Okay. So I think there was agreement, because we have another long item on our agenda, to skip over item number 3. However, I would like to ask that we consider discussing this at a future meeting, because it was the art plan. I'd like us to discuss it because we need to update and look at it. I don't have a time frame from Brian when that will happen, but
That's fine.
I'm going to skip over it this evening, and then we'll move through that motion. It's not listed on here, but I know that you all are expecting an executive session, so we'll have that after we go through the next item. And we'll wrap things up pretty quickly from here. So I'm going to move to item number 4, asking for a motion by the village board to authorize a block party on Blue Spruce Lane on Saturday, October 5th, 2024, from 3 to 6 p.m. Residents shall be notified by the party organizer, and ingress and egress shall not be restricted to any property owner during the event. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
By trustee Weka, sorry.
Michelin,
Are you seconding it?
Yes, second, I second. I forgot what I was doing.
We're all on Main Street still. Seconded by trustee Mishler. Any questions or comments about this block party?
Is it Baltimore Brew Day?
Pardon me?
Let the good times roll.
Okay. I got it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? That will carry. Let me find my correct sheet. Our upcoming meetings, there's a village board meeting Tuesday, October 15th. It's on Tuesday instead of Monday because of Indigenous People / Columbus Day, which is the 14th. So Tuesday, October 15th, 2024 at 6 p.m. located here. I think there's a zoning code meeting on the 16th.
17?
The 17th?
Yeah.
So it's not on here, but I'll throw that in there, that the board will have a summary of the comments for the zoning code plan on the 17th at 6 p.m. in the boardroom. That's October 16th. And then the next village board work session is Monday, October 28th, 2024 at 6 p.m. And with that, I would like to ask for a motion to enter into executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular individual.
So moved.
By trustee Mishler,
Second.
by trustee Weka. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Then that motion was made at 8:14. And from here, we're going to executive session. We won't make any more decisions or talk about any more Main Street plans or any other plans. When we come out, we will just exit the meeting. So I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening and for sticking it out through that very long discussion about Main Street, but you are all better informed than everybody else about what's going on at Main Street over the next year. So thank you.
So real quick, do we want to do a plug for the, is it the 12th? Isn't it the 12th that has the opening for the gallery?
Oh,
Saturday the 12th?
Yeah.
yeah, before we leave, we can let you know. Tracy, since I know you're very involved with it, do you want to?
It's going to be spectacular, food, music. It's still a work in progress, but it will be at the Artworks on Saturday from noon to 6.
Is this Saturday or Saturday, October 12th?
Correct.
And it's Artworks on Railroad Street. So please come by and join. So with that, we can head to the conference room.